Okay. Hello. How
Hi,
are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. So for people that do not know, Jose has a YouTube channel, organization, and it's called We Are One Story. So can you please tell me, first of all, what does the title mean? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but just in case.
Um, we are all one story. We all have our own individual story. We know that to be a fact, but then we also have stories as groups. We have narratives as nations. We have narratives as people. And then, on bigger scale, we have narratives as a whole. And when we say we are all one story, our narrative as a whole isn't um anything like civilization wise. It's like within the individual but within the group, meaning that our stories are all connected and one by the way we feel them as a human being. That the way a mother loves a child here is the same way a mother loves a child across the ocean. The same way we feel pain here is the same way pain is felt on the other side of the world. And if we can connect on our emotional levels and on our basic attributes as people, we can see our story on a fundamental narrative.
One thing that I really like about what you said is I remind myself and I tell my clients all the time, like you are unique, but you're not an island. Like you don't have to feel like your story is just so unique that there's not one person that can relate to it. Because a lot of times when we go through really tough things, we feel like we are out on an island by ourselves, right? But the truth is like not to diminish you're unique, but you're not that unique, but the great thing is that you're connected to so many other people that you can ask
Yeah.
for help and whatnot. So tell me a little bit more about, like, because I know that you run it with your brother. So
Mhm.
like what was the impetus for you guys to be like, we need to start this?
Yeah, well, it was just life. Life happened, and I ended up going through a deep depression. I'd never had suicidal thoughts in my life. I never felt those emotional lows in my life, mostly because I think I was numb for most of it. And, I learned how to just not feel so much. And, everything kind of just hit the fan. I came out to Denver. I didn't have friends. I didn't really have um, anything to keep my mind busy, to keep my mind focused on something outside of me instead of having to go inside of myself. And, um, I just hit rock bottom. I thought my story didn't matter. I thought my life didn't matter. I did have a moment with God where I cried out to God and, like a last place of hope before I was going to kill myself. And in that moment, I did feel hope. I did feel love. I did feel forgiveness. And I felt that my life mattered. And if my life mattered, that my story mattered just as much as my life does. And to look at my life and to look at my story with a little bit of reverence. And, knowing that the place that I'm starting from, just being a person, that if that's all I have to start trying to build something, that's enough. And I told my story to Ralph. Ralph has an incredible story himself. And when I told him that, man, I just want to share people's stories, he looked me dead center in my eyes and he said, let's do it. And, we combined our stories together to make, our own little narrative. And we combined, just overcoming our own traumas and seeing and being able to see the good,
Mm,
because there's so much good. It's just our own pain like blinds us from feeling the fullness of the good that's out there, because maybe
yeah.
we don't think we deserve it. Maybe we're not used to it. Maybe it's foreign to us. But, it was just a simple concept that if we get people really to embrace their own story and become an owner of their story versus a victim, that good things would come from that. And it was just, that was the heart of it. And we just kept on rolling with it.
Um, so I read a study a few years ago that said that people who are in the midst of deep depression, they actually cannot see color as vibrantly as people who are not in depression. Which I remember when because I was on your, I mean, it's not a podcast, but your YouTube channel, when you interviewed me.
Platform, you use platform. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, when I was on your platform, and then we spent like what, an hour and a half talking after, like, about our journeys with God and our depression and things like
Mhm.
that. And I do remember when I was coming out of my depression, I remember like going outside one time and being like, man, the sky is really blue. Like, what the heck? Like, and it's this idea that when you are suffering from depression or whatever it is, a mental health situation, things just, I mean, literally cannot seem as good
Mhm.
as they are. And so you guys speak across the nation, and share your stories and the stories of people, and which is amazing. Like,
Yeah.
what is one of, I don't know if you could be able to pick, but what is one of like the best experiences that you've had in your journey with your organization?
I mean, kind of, I think what's the quote from The Alchemist when he says that, when you pursue your dreams with your whole heart, like the entire universe conspires in your favor,
Mm,
to make it come true. And, it's also a dream. Like, we're building a dream. Like, it's not there per se. Like, it is a walk of faith, if you want to look at it that way, because we're building as we go, and those things aren't there concretely where we want to go. But just doors opening for us. Um, like all the yeses that we got in the beginning that we needed to keep on going. Being able to work out the finances and do that with joy because we pay out of pocket, right? But we
yeah.
don't have kids, so we're so we're able to do that. Um, but doing it that way. But one of the like the bright spots was I had a friend, a high school friend of mine. She works in the nonprofit world, and she had reached out to me, and she was like, "Hey, do you want to come speak to our kids in like the Toberman House in Los Angeles?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." Um, she ended up going to another nonprofit, and her boss over there, Dean Wilson, cool guy. Um, had us on his show, on his platform and his podcast. And me and Ralph, we made it a trip. Well, me and my three brothers, we flew out there. We did our separate, segments on his podcast. And, that was kind of cool. Like how doors open, like when you say yes to the small things, bigger things open up for you.
Hmm.
And then to fast forward now, so with that same organization, his foundation is called the Turner Foundation. We're flying back to Los Angeles for a fundraiser with Magic Johnson and Jerry West. And, you know, like stuff, it's like little things like that that keep you going, that let you know that you're on the right path, that, that your faith is not unrewarded, that keep on going. We're obviously in it for the long haul, but there's little things that we see that keep us like steady. The progress that we see, and that's an external marker, right?
Yeah.
But the metrics that we really want, we can't see, right? Because the metrics that we're in it for is obviously something that's more emotional and abstract than it is concrete. However, those those numbers and stuff like that, they nudge us to keep going when we can't see the metrics that we want to see.
So it's funny that you just said that because I'm working on a draft for just like a really small faith-based ebook,
Mhm.
because it was just placed on my heart, and I have to remind myself at times, and I just wrote this in a chapter. What if every part of your story wasn't so you do what you guys are doing, right? Like doing fundraisers with Magic Johnson and becoming this big thing, right? But
Yeah,
what
yeah.
if every single part of your story that sucks and hurts is just so you can intersect with one individual person, and
Mhm.
then that's why you're here, right? Like that's it, and you just keep going on with your life, and like, and you don't know that you made a difference in that person's life, but you did.
Mhm.
And sometimes I have to remind myself of that, because I think that especially for people that walk in faith and are a part of, I will say, just any religious denomination, because I don't know them all specifically, but speaking from the Christian mindset, right, is like we
Mhm.
think that like there's always a purpose in our pain, and like God's gonna reward
Yeah.
out, like, and which is just like a complete rationalization, because you're
Yeah.
like, there's no way I'm just living a life of
Yeah.
Paul out here that
Yeah.
sucks all the time. And like
Yeah.
God's gonna do something, but
Yeah.
like there he may not make it so that you one day aren't struggling with whatever it is. But
Yeah.
your purpose could literally be for that one lost sheep, which like is beautiful, but also, like could suck, like so.
Yeah.
It's I like that you said that. Like,
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's also a process. Like I do, like when I first started, like there's a lot of black and white stuff we got to do within the organization, like
yeah.
like our taxes,
Yeah.
right? um, but like I've always seen it more spiritually. I've always seen it like when we're going into a person's story, we're going into a person's heart. Like when we're going into like we are going somewhere abstract, like the way you want to see, we know the black and whites of our story, right? These are the
Yeah.
events. Okay, now how do we choose to see them? Like you can go, that is something a little bit more. Um, but as far as the process, right? Like to do this, to go the distance, I understood, I made a commitment to do it for my entire life. And, that gives me a level of breathing room. Like,
Yeah.
like, okay, so this is a pace. This isn't a sprint. It's a marathon. And, I worry about the steps in front of me, not before, like in the beginning, like, we see the goal, right? However
Right.
you see it in your mind, like you see all the, right? And then every day, like, man, how come I'm not there yet?
Yeah.
Right? How come? And then it's the only way you're going to succeed, or I'm going to succeed, is I have to love the day to day, right? Or
Yeah.
else I won't do it, or else I'll quit, or else like it's just too much, because it is a lot. It is extra, it is more than the regular person does. And it's just embracing that, embracing the journey, and knowing that there is a return that we don't see, that, we are helping people in different ways that maybe we'll never see. But like some people, like I'm sure as people will say thank you and stuff like that. That nudges you forward.
Oh yeah.
That keeps you going. And, that definitely keeps us going when people reach out to us and they let us know that, XYZ, we take those words of encouragement to heart, and it definitely helps us, be like, yeah, man, we're we're doing
Yeah,
something
we're
right.
doing it. No, it's 100%, because I have a business coach, and I knew I needed outside help, right? Because I get so focused on the like, I just want to show up. I just want to show up. And he's like, yeah, it's beautiful that you want to show up, but is the way you're showing up like, are your bills paid? And I'm like,
Mm.
no. And he's like, well, then we gotta we gotta do something different, like,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, like it's I love what you said too, because I literally just had this conversation with a client of mine where he was shoulding all over himself. I should have invested more money when I was younger. I should have
Mm.
read more about this. I should have. And I was like, here's the thing. Like because one of the things that him and I are working on is just his sense of security on things. But he has a very specific route where he has experienced insecurity financially, right? And so, and when he's looking at other people, and I go, you have to remember, like, you have to be in your lane, and the fact is that what other people have experienced is different than what you have. So sure, like, would it be great if you had been investing in your 20s? Yeah, okay. I'm like, but at the same time, like, you have a completely different background. It's the equivalent, like I always do with my clients. And I mean, I was happy to be vulnerable and open when I was being interviewed by you, but I'm very honest with everybody. Like
Mhm.
I I'm 35, not with the financial income or the 401k
Yeah,
I
same.
expected. Yeah, like to have at 35, like
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
I'm I am starting over, right? When I started this
Mhm,
business and when I decided I said, I told God, I'm all in. Like if like this is what you want, like I'm all in, but like also like make
mhm.
sure that this is definitely what you want, like
Yeah.
and so but I also know that not being able to go on the vacations or not being able to like just throw money at a ski pass or whatever, like everything I'm doing right now is bigger than myself, and it's a very completely
Mhm,
different walk, like so like it is really hard when we live in a society that measures everything by the black and white or by the numbers, to be like my soul feels right, and then people are like, yeah, but like, what does that mean? And you're like, it feels like I'm correct,
yeah, yeah.
so okay. I love what you guys do, and congratulations
Thank
on your organization continuing to move forward like that. I love it. The little less yeses that you're talking about is, and I think I shared this with you before, but I call those faith trophies. So every single
mhm.
time like a little something happens, I just like text my friends and I'm like, faith trophy, because it's
Yeah,
like you have to find joy and like congratulate yourself and praise that stuff too. Like people
yeah.
think it's just the big stuff. So obviously you have experience with an unhealthy um or mental unhealthiness. I always like get myself mixed up when I'm trying to describe that. And you've done so many interviews that I can only imagine that you have also spoken to people who have experienced mental health issues. And so I know that from my perspective, and I work predominantly with men, and I know that mental health, the way that it can present, the way that people handle it, communicate about it, all those things can be different for men versus women. So I'm curious for you personally, and then also for the men that you have interviewed, um, what's the difference that you have seen with in terms of men versus women?
Women are more, they can talk about their feelings easier,
Hmm.
obviously. I mean, there's a societal thing, I think, men definitely can talk about their feelings. It's just they don't necessarily feel comfortable because they mostly never have, right? Girls have girlfriends, right?
Yeah.
Where they cry together, they talk about all whatever they're going on. They don't care, like, oh, I like this guy, right? Guys, you feel dumb as shit if you go tell another guy, like, hey, man, I think I really like this girl. This is how I'm feeling, right? Even though you're feeling those emotions, right?
Yeah.
So you bottle it down, and then instead of just being you, you repackage that into something else, right? Like, and so with men in general who come to share their story, it is a little bit different. I think when someone reaches out, they're already at a place where they want to be vulnerable, or where they want to express themselves authentically, or take a step to being like, hey, this is my story. So what?
Yeah.
Let's move forward. And, you know, but I still get, it's 80% women, 20% men who come to share their story. It's still, you know, women predominantly. And I think, I don't know like the statistics and all of that on that, but I think that men just don't feel comfortable sharing
Mhm.
because they don't think that they don't feel safe, or they don't think it's okay, or they don't think a man can do that, or they've been bottling up their emotions for so long, or packaging whatever their story a different way so long that, like, it's a no-go for them as soon as they
Yeah.
see it,
Yeah.
and but the guys who do come in, like, I applaud them. Like, even the guys who I can tell, like, there's still a little, there's still a little bit of that, the male protection, right? Like,
Yeah.
right, go powering through it. But I applaud just taking that step. And when somebody verbalizes their story and then feels it emotionally, like that's big. Like that's a
Yeah.
step in the right direction. And if that's what I get, that's what I'll take, knowing
Yeah.
that, hey, this is progress right here and this is good. And then just move forward that way.
It's one thing that I've been working on with my clients is using I feel statements and slowing down when they say them. Because yeah, like women, we almost inherently speak from that space, right? Like if someone does something to annoy me, I go like I just feel like, like you don't even care, right? But then guys will just be like, yeah, it was really annoying when you like ignored me.
Yeah.
And like, and I with my clients, I'll be like, well, okay, so they ignored you. Like, what was the problem here? And they're like, I mean, it's rude, and I don't like it. And I'm like, okay, like, how do you feel? Well, I felt dismissed. I felt ignored. And I'm like, okay, like, can we slow down?
Mhm.
Uh, and I'm like, you're saying the same thing, just slower, but it's that idea that they are allowing it to just seep in and like stay with them. And I like what you said about the idea of like men being able to feel safe. What are some dynamics either, and you can speak completely personally or from what you have um consumed and received from people,
Mhm.
but like what are some dynamics you think that are critical to men feeling safe, or as I like to say, being able to be soft with themselves?
Man, that's tough. Because we're talking about how somebody's raised. That's like decades, of being taught,
Yeah.
of observing and doing, right? And to go against that does take a leap. That's why I applaud the men who do step forward.
Hmm.
Um, but for me, you just can't care. Like I break it down to fundamental basics. Like some people like we work on the schematics on like on this one aspect of this issue, this other aspect. Like if you fundamentally enter something with the intention to be completely honest, you will in turn have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So if you make that intention like, hey, I'm going to say the truth, then you will be vulnerable. Then you will inevitably talk about how you feel, how you felt, and then you will get to be more of yourself than you've ever been because you're being honest.
Yeah.
Now when you take that away and honesty isn't in the forefront of your character or your forefront of what your intentions are, then you're playing a role versus being who you are. And for me, it was just, I just didn't care anymore. Like, I didn't care what people thought anymore. Like, to be honest, I cared what people thought, like this made up idea that what other people thought of me mattered,
Yeah. Yeah.
so much. Like, and it affected my decision making from the top down. Like, a picture in my head of what would this person think if I make this decision versus what is the best decision for myself.
Yeah.
What is my group of friends going to think if I say this versus like I need to let this out regardless of what anybody thinks. And I think for men, maybe it'd be easier to look at it that way. Like, who cares what anybody else thinks? Like, really sit down with your thoughts. Are you being honest with yourself fundamentally?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
start there.
The first pillar in my work is digging up the dirt slash being brutally honest. And it's the idea that you are allowed, which I think sometimes is the biggest hindrance to people, not even be able to go there, but the idea that you need some type of outside permission to go there, to be able to say like, yeah, you know what? My uncle sucked. My mom was not good, right? Like, but like there's always this knee jerk reaction in us to excuse or rationalize or protect different things, decisions that we make, people in our
Mhm.
lives, how events truly were versus how we decided that they should be, because shame is such a big big catalyst to us not being honest, right? And the thing I tell my clients all the time, like, do not self-edit. Like, so like when you were smiling and I was like, what are you smiling about? It's because like I'm always curious, what is someone thinking that they're not saying? Cause like I want to hear it. Like I love hearing that stuff because it's the real thing, right? You know? And so when you tell people like you have permission to not self-edit, it's astounding what people just start saying because suddenly you just have permission to be like, I literally don't care what you say, just say it. And they're like, well, I was thinking, blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, oh, it's floodgates. Okay. You know, like so but well, this brings me to so not caring what people think sounds like a key part of your transformation from depression to now here you are, right? Like making a difference. What is another key or keys to your transformation to who you are today?
I mean, not caring what other people think, that's not the core of the transformation. The core of the transformation is really, for me, I was able to believe in God, and I was able to believe in myself. I was able to believe that, you know, that I am loved, that I am forgiven, and within that realm that, I can be myself,
Hmm.
that I'm empowered to be myself, not because of anything I've done, not because of anything I'll do, not because of anything I have, but because of who I am. Um, and I think we all have that fundamentally, that we take away our own worth every day. Every day we just focus on things, right?
Hmm.
When the fact of the matter is, like, we're the most important beings on earth. Like, you're worth more than anything material on this earth. And that fact, we all accept that as truth fundamentally. When when we talk about natural disasters, we don't talk about oh my God, look at all this money we lost. We talk about the lives that were lost. When those planes hit the Twin Towers, we didn't talk about the price of the Twin Towers. We talked about the souls in those buildings. If a plane crashes, we don't talk about the plane. We talk about the people in the plane.
Yeah.
We know deep down that we are the most precious thing on this earth. It's just there's also a responsibility with accepting that, like, we are people. We are empowered to do good. We are empowered to dream and follow those dreams, but that's not easy. you know um it's just accepting that, and I accepted that. I accepted my responsibility as a person,
Hmm.
and I accepted, who I am in the fullness of who I am as a human being, knowing that, there's things about me that are just spectacular that I don't even know, right?
Yeah.
um but believing that, and really believing that, and then living my life within that truth.
I love that. It's something that I have been writing about a lot more. The idea that we are 100% allowed and we need to be able to be our fullest self, recognize who we are, accept it as just like a fact, right? And then own it.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've struggled with a lot because, I grew up in a predominantly white area. I was never the girl that got asked out. I was never the girl that people had crushes on, like so my worth became very much from the external.
Mhm.
Like I'm not attractive. I'm not worthy. I don't get these things and they are reserved for some type of person, right? That's just not me. And that's all that is, right? And that became so much of my identity that when men would say, oh, you're really attractive, or my friends would be like, well, of course, you're gorgeous, or whatever, I would always brush it away because
Mhm.
it almost felt untrue, but then also like egotistical to recognize it and like accept it. Like yes, this is a fact, right? Like and when we are so used to demeaning ourselves and living in scarcity, and I also think it comes with the territory of being like a good person where you almost have to martyr yourself. Like you're not allowed to be like, yes, this is true about me, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm great. And like
Yeah.
but there once you recognize it, accept it, and then you own it. Like now a much different story for me to like, talk to people or walk down the street or whatever, because it's like, yes, I know that men may have a specific response to me. And that's just what that is. And I also don't have to do anything about it. I don't, like it is. And it's taken so much work. And I just use that as like a very like superficial, easy example, but there's so many parts of me and there's so many parts of you, so many parts of friends and clients and family, right? That you're like, well, this is just true. And they're like, no. And I'm like, just accept it. Like, it's not that big of a deal, like, but so I like that you said that was a key part of your transformation. Um, so, which does bring me to, because as you are making that growth and transforming and all of whatnot, um, boundaries are so important, right? Um,
Mm.
what are a few boundaries that you had to enlist so that you kept moving forward?
Boundaries. I don't know. I've always had I think I've had self-respect in different ways. I mean, when it comes to externally, right? How
Mhm.
people treat me and what I would accept as good or not good. Um, Boundaries. I mean, the my work comes first. You know, my faith, my work, and my life flows through that period. Um, when you like, that's empowering
Mhm.
to make that decision. Like, hey, this is the priority in my life. And for some people, it's like crazy, right? And for
Yeah.
other people who are dreamers and doers, and it makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
Like, this is the only way something gets done at the end of the day. It's someone has to be committed 100%. And for other people to know that boundary off the rip, that this is my priority in life, that my faith, my work, and my family, and in that order, um, this is just how it is. And if someone doesn't like that, like, and oddly enough, when you set a boundary like that, you end up meeting people who
You
respect that
respect it.
boundary.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It
Yeah.
isn't like, it's like, because you set the tone for that. Like,
Yes.
this isn't something I'm letting somebody know 6 months later. This is like, no, this is a part of who I am at this point. There's no separating it. And people, anyone has no choice but to respect that
Yeah.
from the rep, because that line is set and it's a pretty hard line. That one, boundaries, as far as, guide me here, as far as what else? Boundaries as far as what else?
So I mean, one of my this I'll give you the most silly boundary I have. Um, I cannot participate in conversations where people say, "Can we talk later?" Because it makes me so anxious. I call it the principal's office effect. That like
Okay.
I'm walking into being in trouble or something. And so yeah, like I have a bunch of boundaries, because my overarching boundary is I protect my mental health at all costs, right? Because I've seen what happens when I don't. And so all my boundaries, health, communication, relationships, all those things are just built to protect me from yeah, being self-sabotaging, right, with my mental
Mm,
health.
yeah.
So like, do you have any boundaries like that where you're either where it's so 100% personal, or it does involve other people?
Mm. I don't think so. I mean, I've also um like, I won't let, I'm also a feeler. Like, I do a lot of things based on how I feel. Like,
Mhm.
if there's a bad feeling to it, like, I usually follow that, like, and I'll try and X that. Like, as far as like a black and white thing, like, oh, if this, that, like, I usually just go with the flow. But if it doesn't feel right, and then the corresponding actions, validify that, like, I turn the other direction.
Yeah.
As far as boundaries is, like, I don't know, like, I'm pretty, like, I don't like to force my my way of living on anybody else. Like I like
Oh
to
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I'm sober, right?
Yeah.
And you know, that's my boundary. All of my friends drink and smoke.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't mind hanging around them.
Mhm.
I guess I don't like negative talk, right? Like that gets on my nerves, but it depends. Like, is this negative talk for someone just trying to let something out? Or is this like just a negative, just like bad, dark
Yeah.
negative? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Well, because like the idea is that and the I should say the way that I look at boundaries and then teach them, right? It's always just about you. It's never about
mhm,
anybody else. But it's the idea that as you are growing, because what you said is fundamental, right? Like if you are like, hey, this is the tone and this is my priority, this is my boundary. Um when you say it as a statement, no one can argue it, right?
mhm,
And so I think that as you're growing as people, and not you, but as people are growing, they get to that space where it's much easier to just be like, this is what is. But as people are moving into that direction, they need boundaries for themselves to be like, every single time I talk to like my dad, I get into a screaming match and then I sit with it for a week. I get mad and angry, blah, blah. So like, therefore, I cannot participate in a conversation where I'm screaming at my dad. Like,
mhm,
like, and I always, I teach my clients, checkpoints, and it's the idea, and I'll break it down. My favorite analogy is, I have two dogs, right? And if they are not allowed to be outside the gate without their leash, like the boundary is they cannot be outside the gate without their leash. And
mhm,
then the checkpoints are, well, I keep the gate door closed to facilitate them not doing that. I keep them on a leash inside the gate, and then maybe I have toys and treats and things away from the gate to keep them from even wanting to, right? And so like those checkpoints help them and help me facilitate their success, right? And so it's the same thing for me. If and so I have all those type of things because I'm really good. And I always like to say it doesn't matter how evolved and grown I'm becoming and how much the Lord is working in my life. Like sometimes that little bit of petty is just always there, like so
yeah, yeah.
I'm really good at like being like, Sarah, you're coming up on a checkpoint. And I'll be like, first of all, not today.
Yeah,
Like, we're
yeah,
going all the way to that
yeah.
boundary. But no, I mean, I I think that you are probably a really good example though of someone who, because so many people do struggle with self-respect. So many people do struggle with what they allow in their lives. And it's amazing and a blessing that you are just in a place where you're like, yeah, I mean, I don't allow self-respect or disrespect. And yeah, like I have this is just what this is, like which is something I think probably everybody aspires to, right? Like it's they don't need 1,000 boundaries like some
Thank you.
people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I also think we're so dynamic as human beings. Like, and you got to find what works for you. What works for me, like if I focus on rules and stuff like that, and like, man, that shit wrecks my brain. Like,
Yeah.
I can't, it's like almost I can't get it done. Like for me, when I focus on bigger concepts and emotions and stuff like that and fundamental stuff, like I think those other things fall into place. That's what I've seen, but
Mhm.
for my life. But you do got to be aware of it. You know what I mean? So that you can be like, yo, you can catch yourself sometimes. But yeah, yeah, like I know what disrespect feels like, you
Mhm.
know. I know what it feels like, and I know like you got to nip that shit in the butt as soon as you get like, no, it's got to stop right then and there.
Yes, trust me, as someone who is who's finally figured out how to not allow disrespect. Like I'm really good at being like, well, you know what? It happened this once and I'm definitely going to let them know. And then the minute that someone gets that foot in the door, like it's like, crap, man, just I don't know, don't be like this. Like, like but
Yeah, well, we also want to be nice, like,
yeah.
hey, right?
Like,
It's yeah, it's a process, right? Time will
yeah.
tell. Time will prove. Time will prove whether you were right or wrong,
Yes,
right?
this is true. So this does bring me to my next question. I talk about soft space, the
Mhm.
idea that you are allowed to be your most vulnerable, bare self. And whether that is however that shows up. For me, sometimes it's being able to just sit in silence and watch TV with someone, or being able to just break down and cry. You know, it varies from day to day. Um, and I have my belief is that soft space is kind of the intersection of nurturing, accountability, and being able to just like hear someone, be able to be present with them. And so and the reason why I add accountability in there is because if we over nurture people, then we are allowing them to just sit in a place that is completely stuck. If we uh are always allowing people, right? So the showing up, allowing people to just keep being wherever they are, then we sometimes aren't moving them and they aren't moving to where they want to go. And then there's that part of accountability of you are 100% allowed to be as do whatever you need to do today, this week, whatever it is. But at some point, like how are you moving forward? How am I showing up for you? Whether it's a partner or whether you're doing this alone. So for you, I'm kind of curious, what does soft space look like? Either single, alone, at home, or with a family member, with a partner.
Yeah, I mean, so I was just in a relationship, right? I know. Um, I think that like trust lets you be in a soft space. Um, when you trust that somebody's not going to laugh at you, that somebody's not going to ridicule you, when you trust that like there's love there,
Yeah,
you know, um, that allows you to be more open, to be yourself. And if it's in a relationship, that's kind of in different areas within the relationship too. But you know, it's a feeling too. Like it's a feeling of not being judged, that somebody is just there to be there,
yeah,
you know, to let you know in a tangible way that there's another human being who doesn't care about the bad shit you've done, that accepts you as you are right then and there.
yes,
Um, and you do feel completely present in those moments, you know, of being, you know, ideally of being in that soft space. Uh, you know, personally, how I get in soft space, I think, the way I work at it individually every day. I mean, I do my devotions, I pray, I meditate, but like it's usually like those split seconds, right? Or few seconds where you just sit with yourself and like once again believing and accepting the truth of being loved and being enough. And regardless of what's going on like externally, that I have a constant that's forever,
hmm,
that's never going to change for me. And, I don't want to tie that to a routine, but I also do something tangibly expressing that. Um, that gives me peace, you know, like before myself, I would put, like most people, I would put like my constant would be external. Can be my job. It can be a relationship. Like,
yeah,
man, I see this person every day. Like, this person's my constant, right?
yeah,
And I never thought about it that way, but like looking at like there's a comfort, a knowing, and you go home to that, and or you go to work and you see the same people, right? And then when those things change, it's hard to deal with
yeah,
because you've made this the foundational piece in your life, right? And, now as I've gotten older, my foundational piece in my life is within me, and I have you know, the ability to exercise that belief tangibly. And my work is an extension of that. When I share stories, that is an extension of my deepest held beliefs.
yeah,
And I live my life through that. And that is my constant. And like I do think that's a soft space for me, because when you have those moments alone or with God, or even when I'm sitting hearing somebody's story and somebody's completely honest and vulnerable, they're soft. And in that moment, I'm soft too,
Yeah.
and those are things for me that are within the realm of my control that I can do every day. And that, whether outside relationship, work, those things will change, right? But the core of like me will keep on going.
I love that you said when someone is being soft, you are soft then too, because one thing that I try to remind myself is that the more I show up for myself and the more that I become more self-aware and my better self, it means in turn I can show up better for others. And there is like 100% a truth of when someone is being soft with you, you innately have to become soft to be able to receive it and to allow it. And
Mhm.
because if you're being soft with me and the whole time in my head I'm like, I can't believe he said that. I can't believe he used to do that. I can't believe blah, blah, blah. And it means that you're going to feel that you starting to hit off of a wall that I'm putting up of judgment or disbelief or shame or whatnot. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to one thing that I said before, this permission that like when you are by yourself, because it's harder to be soft with yourself because you may need a whole day to just be like, "Oh, woe is me." But then you're like, "Well, I also have to go to work or take the dogs out or whatever." Like responsibilities keep showing up when you don't want them. It's like, and but yeah, and like there has to be this ability to sit with yourself, have thoughts and feelings,
Mhm.
and immediately just allow them and be recognize it's a part of who you are, at least in this moment. And I one thing that I have noticed is I feel like a lot of people, especially men, carry a lot of shame, and it's really hard for people to let that go. And they create it even when they are having a thought. And I know I used to carry a lot of shame around my depression because I would think, wow, I really don't want to be here. And then I would immediately think, man, like, Sarah, you have such a good life. That's so wrong of you to like, what's wrong with you? Like, and so I would shame myself into not allowing myself to have honest thoughts, which would probably have gotten me help earlier, right? And so yeah, I just do you have I'm kind of curious before we wrap up, do you have any experience with shame or how to let go of self-judgment that you can share?
Yeah, shame, of course. I was ashamed of a lot of things. I was ashamed of where do we start, right? Where I was ashamed that I was beat and that I was hurt and that I would feel so hurt. Like I just felt ashamed of how I felt being hurt. I
Yeah.
felt ashamed of being poor. I felt ashamed of not having enough, of not being enough. It's just shame, 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 right? And they're just honest emotions that get misconstrued into shame
Yeah.
because we don't have I didn't have a direction for them. Um, how I dealt with that was on a fundamental basis that I'm loved, I'm enough. Being a person is enough. In turn, seeing other people the same way. I can't believe that for myself and not believe it for another human being.
This is true.
Um, you know, like when I hit rock bottom, I mean, it's like I carried the shame with me, and I thought that's what a man was supposed to do, right? Or the burden of my so hard life, right?
Yeah.
And going down that spiral, like I guess this is just life, like, um, but that leads to like destruction, right? That
Mhm.
thought process, that way of thinking, and finally I just couldn't do it anymore. And, going through that deep depression, and making it out of that, thank God, right?
Yeah, right.
Um, it was like, at the end of the day, like when I do die, nobody else is going to be there but me and God. It's not going to be the people it's not going to be my mom. It's not going to be my dad. It's not going to be my sisters. Like, it's going to just be me and him. This is like, it was freeing when, like I was like, well, shit, like during those darkest moments, I did have epiphanies, right?
Mhm.
Like when I was thinking about killing myself, like nobody was there.
Yeah.
You know, I remember telling my sister, like, they were maybe catching on into how I was feeling. She was like, "Hey, anytime you're feeling down, just call me." You know, I called her one night, she didn't answer. You know, I called her, like, you know what I mean? Like, we have people in our lives to help support us, but they can't live for us,
No, yeah.
you know, and realizing that, man, that I have my family who loves me, but at the end of the day, it's just me and God. And it empowered me. Like, I feel like when I see the man upstairs, he's gonna ask me, did you do what I put in your heart to do? It's not gonna be the rules, the all this stuff is gonna be, did you do what I told you to do? I think we all have that in our dreams, right? And
Hmm.
what we're great at and what we're good at. Like, did you use your God-given talents for the good? Did you use it to help others? And that would have been my biggest regret, that I didn't do or even pursue the dreams in my heart that I don't believe came from myself, since I had them since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I don't even know. I think I went off on a tangent. What were we talking
No,
about?
you're good. You're good. Because we were talking about shame, and
Oh
I just
yeah, shame. Yeah, back to shame.
well, no, it's like something that you said made me remember. So, like, I've been slowly making my way through the Bible, right?
Mhm.
Because I used to be of the opinion of like, yeah, like, I hear about it in sermons and whatever, but now reading it, like, and the way that I ingest pretty much everything through about God and Jesus, everything is, I always put like my own tone on stuff. And
Mhm.
I always laugh because I'll read something and it's just, I mean, it's just words, right? But like the way I'm reading it is God being like, girl, man, come on, like, you heard me say that, like, and so I'm always like, man, like, people, right? But
Yeah.
one thing that I had to, and it's just to the side here, you can't see it, but I have a list of, it's called like wait on God, and it's decisions and actions I have done that have been out of haste, trying to determine my own worth and not feeling like God was bringing something into my life that tangibly told me my worth. So then I made decisions. So I'll just be with this person because I'm alone and this person's telling me that I'm beautiful, whatever. And then how those hasty decisions led me to places of loneliness or abuse or disrespect or, whatever, scarcity. And
Mhm.
one thing that I had to laugh about and really take hold of was the conversation between God and Moses. And God is like, hey, I want you to go do this thing. I want you to lead my people. And he's like, so like the thing that you don't understand is I'm really not good at public speaking.
Yeah.
And God's like, okay, yeah, but like go just do this. And he's like, no, but like seriously though, I'm not good at. And like guy just keeps repeating it. And he's like, fine, get your brother, like have your
Yeah.
brother do it, right? And I just laugh because we prop up these characters, these like, not characters, these people in the Bible, as like these almighty people who just like rose to the occasion. And yet we have examples of Moses, whom like everybody knows, being like, so like, okay, see what had happened was is that I stutter and and so it gives me grace and freedom to be like, I'm not gonna be perfect in this. Like, so when I am shaming myself and being like, man, I need to pray more, I need to listen to God more, I just need to like all in. And then I have those moments where I'm like, God, like, I just don't know if I'm your person because, like, I don't know if you know this about me. And I remind myself that, first of all, God knows everything about me. And then, second of all, like, it's okay that I had that moment because Moses had that moment, like, and so, like, I can just be like, you know what, let me learn from this. Let me just do what you have placed on my heart. Because yeah, the last thing I want is to like get to heaven and God to be like, so how'd we do? And I'm like, okay, so like, I definitely heard you, but like,
Yeah.
okay, Instagram, right? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I love that. And I love that your story is very simple. And one thing that I treasure is being able to have conversations with so many different people, um, regardless of race, gender, sexuality, and religion. And being able to have you as a guest was important to me because not only what your mission is, but also the fact that you do have that lens of faith that
Mhm.
um I think a lot more people can relate to, but given the state of the world and politics and religion and everything, it's a little bit less of a conversation, especially for people probably in our age group where we are not we, but people are diverting to saying, "Oh, I have a relationship with God," because they don't want to say like, "Oh, I'm a Christian," right? Or I'm Episcopal,
Yeah.
or like because like for in some
Yeah.
spaces it's starting to have like a negative connotation, right? So I love that we can have a conversation that's also rooted in God. And I thank you for that. And the last thing I want to hear from you is I love using I am statements for either hyping yourself up or owning or just
Mm.
like powering yourself. So I'm curious, what are three I am statements that you would say today?
Oh, I mean, I am loved. I am forgiven. I am a child of God. I mean, period.
Easy. I like it. Um, thank you so much. I'm definitely gonna have a link for your YouTube, your website, but is there anything, I know that you mentioned the fundraiser, but is there any product, any fundraisers, any interviews, anything that you want people to know about?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to check out what our mission's about, you can go to our website at weareallonestory.net. If you want to support what we're doing, you can purchase a book we have on there, or you can go on and donate. We have a donate button there too as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And definitely
Awesome.
keep me in the loop. I would love to know what you guys do, especially locally. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.